Hey, I'm Forrest Poston. The channel is now Thoughts and Mutters, where my mind goes out to play. And pretty much any subject might show up at any time, but it'll mostly end up being related to literature, movies, education, writing, stupid things I did as a kid, and other family stories, with odd bits and pieces thrown in. Today, I guess, is one of those odd bits and pieces. Uh, Talking about or thinking about I think, therefore I am, why it's nonsense, why it still gets defended, and how that relates to an idea I'm working on about the psychology of questions and answers. Before I get to all of that, of course, I do want to say, or feel like there's a need to say, please click share, please subscribe, make comments, preferably with minimal profanity, and click the notification button. All of those good things. It does help, or so I'm told. Now, I think, therefore I am, cogito ergo sum. Rene Descartes, one of the most famous philosophical sayings for a very long time. And even in Descartes' time, it was pointed out that it made no sense, because I, in any language, assumes existence, which means you're then using an assumption as a proof, and logically that don't cut it. No, I mean, once you have an assumption, you cannot use that to say my assumption is true. Well, instead of saying whoops, everybody just kind of went on or came to the defense and said, oh, well, it's, you shouldn't say I. You say, it thinks, or something thinks, or there is a thing thinking. And that's a really pretty tortured way to try and prove a nonsensical beginning. And the thing is, aside from saying it thinks, there is something thinking, all of those are still an assumption, and you are the one making the assumption. So you have to exist for your assumption to be valid. And there we are again. And do I exist is actually the important part, because if there is a thing thinking, but I don't exist, I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there is something thinking. Do I exist? This thing that I think of as me, does it have a degree of separate existence? Now, of course, quantum physics, everything's connected, nothing's truly separate, but there are degrees of separation and perspective. And do I have some degree of free will, the ability to make actual choices? Because if everything is just chaos, or if everything is predetermined either by brain chemistry or some divine being, well, then nothing matters, does it? We have to have existence and choice before the rest of it makes a difference. So the best we can say is that I assume my existence because I find any other, assumption to be kind of pointless. And the air conditioner just kicked on, so if that's causing sound trouble, I apologize. It won't last long. And for all I know, I'm actually the fevered dream of a giant alien cockroach. Kind of makes me wish the cockroach could do better, But that may be the case. I may be a character in a story by a rather twisted author. I don't know. And whatever I assume may be wrong. At any given point, I may be wrong, even if I do exist. And there's the key. I may be wrong. That really has to be a foundational assumption if you're truly going to think and doubt. And Descartes and related philosophers, they claimed that they were doubting, that it was rational, this consideration, and that doubting was what led to being able to think. You had to question things. And yet they were basing this idea of question on an absolute. They needed to consider existence as an absolute as their basis for going on to question, which pretty much invalidates the entire concept, because if you assume an absolute, well, if you claim an absolute, then you've created this idea of not being wrong, and this idea that if we can know one absolute, then we can know other absolutes, or at least it raises the possibility. And you just start moving further and further away from I may be wrong. And, well, if we could put, look at sort of the wave of thinking, your range, we've kind of got this midline, and then the might be possibilities, that just wave up and down. And if you think you may be wrong, there is no limit to the wave. If there's always that possibility, and you're always kind of looping back to check, hey, I assume I exist, but let me go look again and see if I've noticed anything else. When you assume an absolute, then you start to decrease the range of that wave, and you move more and more towards just the flat line. We can't really call it thinking. And there's really what I've been looking at for a while. I'll be doing a lot more videos on this because it's kind of a tough idea to put together. It's going to be in a lot of different pieces. How much we depend on answers versus questions varies. There are some psychological things, and it appears to be a combination of genetics and environment, like so many other things. It's tied in with empathy, which is related to genetics and environment. But some people really psychologically have to have answers that are stopping points. You get this answer and you're done. If there's another question, it's a new question. It's not just an ongoing thing. Other people prefer questions. Now, if you look, the social pressure is toward answers. We do true, false, multiple choice, fill in the blank, all of these things that are absolute yes, no, right, wrong, either, or answers. and we get rewarded for that, and it kind of shuts down more and more any actual questioning. And in my teaching days, I found that switching the questioning mode back on drove students nuts. Almost literally. I mean, I kind of pushed a few, or they ended up pushing themselves because, they found that their brain got into questions and another part of them didn't know what to do with it. And one of my students finally just kind of pulled himself back from the snapping point by looking up and saying, I think you don't answer the questions, you follow them. And I think it may be one of the most brilliant philosophical statements I've ever encountered. He was 18 years old. He's actually forgotten ever having said it, but beats the dickens out of Descartes. And it's going to be the basis of a lot more of the videos. So I kind of warn you, I will be trying to trick you into asking questions and depending less on answers. All right, I've got a cat whose glucose needs tested, so I'm going to stop now. I'll do more videos later. I hope you kind of found this one a little bit interesting, or maybe angered you a little bit. Sometimes that's a good thing too. Thanks for watching. Please watch some of the other videos, and I'll be talking to you later because I like to talk.